It's my pleasure on behalf of the Rotary Club of Stockton, and our new partner we're thrilled to have this year is VFW Post 52. We've done this on our own the last couple of years, and Bob and I hooked up and had a good relationship, and I think this is going to be a very nice relationship with the Rotary Club of Stockton and the VFW. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Please join me in singing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. What we're trying to do here today on Memorial Day, as the generations have passed, fewer and fewer families have been affected by deaths of military service. You know, you go back as far as the Civil War, and the Civil War was there were more American casualties in the Civil War than any other battle war that we've been in. In families in the Civil War, it was like 1 out of 5 American families had a military death. So you think about walking down your block, and every 5th house you come to, there's a house where someone has lost one. That, as the wars went on in World War II, was like 1 in 368, but that was a matter of the fact that there was so many millions of people involved in World War II. But excuse me, what we need to do is with the Rotary Club and I'm sure the VFW, we're trying to keep that spirit in America going, where we remember our deceased veterans, because as the generations get further and further away from that feeling may go away, and we don't want that happen. The difference is people get confused. What's Veterans Day and what's Memorial Day? The difference: Memorial Day memorializes people who were killed in action in the various wars that we fought. Veterans Day just honors all of those who have served. So you look at the grand total of American military that have been killed in the wars the country has been involved in, and it's a staggering number of almost 1.5 million people. Now, I was doing a lot of research to try and see what the actual count was on all these various wars, and you look at Wikipedia, you look at different sources, and the numbers kind of vary. Like I've seen that the Civil War had between 500,000 and 750,000 casualties, so that's quite a distance. So you can say it's probably around 600,000. World War II, there were about 405,000 American casualties. When you think about it, you look at World War II as a whole. Worldwide, about 80 million people were killed, and of the 80 million people, about 35 to 40 million of them were civilians, because that was a different type of war where you didn't worry about collateral damage in those days. You just blew everything up. So that's a difference. So some of the deadliest battles that we ever had, you know, a lot of us will think of Iwo Jima, where there was about 7,000 people, or maybe the Battle of Gettysburg, which had about, I think the Battle of Gettysburg, there were about 7,000 casualties. The biggest battle that the Americans ever had casualties was in World War I at the Battle of the Argonne, where 26,000 Americans were killed in the Battle of the Argonne. So that's the bloodiest battle in the history of our country. the history of Memorial Day started right around the Civil War. It started in women were decorating the graves with flowers of the Civil War. It kind of started in the South because maybe there were more casualties in the South, but so it started in the South decorating graves, and it became what was called Decoration Day, and that was declared by Union General Logan in 1868 that we're going to call it Decoration Day, and they started having official days. The problem was, there were still hard feelings in the South, and they didn't want to celebrate the same day. So the people in the South thought, if we're going to have a Decoration Day, we're rooting for the American soldiers instead of the Confederate soldiers. So it wasn't until really after World War I when it consolidated, and eventually it was named Memorial Day, and that's what we have today. It was always on May 30th, and until there was a federal act that wanted to create 3-day holidays. So now it varies anywhere from the 25th of May to the 31st of May, depending on how the calendar goes. But it's funny, there was this senator, I think I'll pronounce his name wrong, Inouye from Hawaii, and every year after did I pronounce it right? So every year in the Senate, after they changed it, he introduced a bill every year in the Senate to move it back to the 30th, the 30th of May, and they never did it.
We gather here today to remember and honor those who have given their lives for their country during World War II, and those young men and women who served and returned as different people as they sacrificed their youth during the period of World War II. They've seen and experienced the inhumanity of warfare, losing friends, classmates, comrades in the common cause of freedom. And remember those who served, some of these folks right here among us, from Normandy, Iwo Jima, North Africa, Philippine Sea, North Africa foxhole, the flight decks of carriers, the Pacific, medics in the battlefield, nurses at the back. The whole world was at war. Almost no one escaped being impacted by this conflict. We also remember and honor those that have served after World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, those that were in harm's way, wherever they served for the United States of America. On this occasion, we particularly remember not the statistics, as Bob has mentioned, the number of people that died or were maimed. Numbers seem fairly impersonal. Today, those of us a certain age, we remember specific persons. And at this time, I'd like for us to create a brief roll call of those persons whom we especially remember for their service during World War II and any conflict in which the United States was involved. Some of them have their names on the bricks here. Others of them are not recorded, but very much treasured in our hearts. So I invite you at this time to name one or two close to you and identify their service. I have two uncles here, Ensign Paul Johnson, U.S. Navy, and Arnie Johnson, Army Air Corps.
Captain Charles Patton Jr., Army Air Corps. 24 Patton.
Bosun Al Spatola, Pearl Harbor, 1941. Brother Sam, E-Day, 2nd Infantry Division.
Ray Miller, U.S. Navy.
Corporal Norman Dahlin, killed in Berlin, 1945.
George Neely, U.S. Navy. Lucy Neely, U.S. Navy.
Perfecto Flores, Battle of the Bulge, Army.
Andres Bello, Navy.
Jim Betts, Gunner's Mate, U.S. Merchant Marine. Bob Betts, Gun Captain on the Admiral's flagship all over the Pacific.
John C.R. Gray, who killed the first Japanese off Guam on Pearl Harbor Day, rescued Eddie Rickenbacker, he rescued me. He was the first Army house.
U.S. Army.
Thank you.
Delton Walling, Pearl Harbor survivor, 6 campaigns of the Pacific War. I made 9 invasions in those campaigns. I was out there 5 years, 2 months without coming home. I came home 80% disabled, and then 1 year later they took my pension away from me. I paid my own shop all the rest of the way of my life. They are not taking care of your servicemen today.
Chet Madura, U.S. Air Corps. Casey Madura, U.S. Air Corps.
George Brensky, Uncle Frank, 1945, last mission over Bremen in a B-17.
Served in Korea 1954 through 1956, and I'm still waiting for my damn pension.
A.D. Kelly, United States Marines, 51 Korea.
Pete Cruz, Airborne, Battle of the Bulge. Nick de Santiago, Pacific Theater. Ralph de Santiago, Pacific Theater. Nick de Santiago, European Theater. My uncles.
Al Bullock, Pearl Harbor survivor, filmed the surrender on the USS Missouri.
Ace of Aces, Dick Bong, P-38 pilot, 40 killed.
Bob
Leo Brown, Army Air Force. Norm Wright, USS Providence, Battle of the Lele, Grand Start.
Orwin Miller, first man to receive an in-flight blood transfusion.
And we're placing a wreath at this memorial in honor and remembrance of those folks that you have mentioned. We offer flowers, as we were talking about. This is the time that flowers bloom, and one of the most beautiful things on the planet. They're here today, they're fated tomorrow. And however brief their lifespan, they had goodness and beauty beyond our imaginings. And we place these flowers next to a granite memorial, the most enduring of stones. Let us commend those whom we have named and those not named to the mercy of God, our Maker and Redeemer. Our sisters and brothers, we entrust you to God. You have gone forth from this world in the love of the Creator who gave you life. They are now with all the faithful, living and departed. May you rest in eternal peace and glory. Where grief and misery are banished and light and joy evermore abide. I have a short poem here by Memorial Day by Annette Wynne. Is it enough to think today of all the brave and then put away the thought until a year has sped? Is this full honor for our dead? Is it enough to sing a song and deck a grave and all year long forget the brave that who died, that we might keep our grand land proud and free? Full service needs a greater toll, that we who live give heart and soul to keep the land they died to save, and be ourselves in turn the brave. Let us pray. Loving and eternal God, we commend to your gracious care in keeping all persons of our armed forces at home and abroad today. Defend them day by day with your heavenly grace, strengthen them in their trials, give them courage to face the challenges before them, and grant them a sense of your abiding presence wherever they may be. In the name of our Creator, whose nature is love, and whose people we are. Amen.
Very special guest, Delton Walling, Pearl Harbor survivor. So good to see you. How you doing?
Well, it's great to be here. I'm walking and breathing.
You're walking and breathing. You weren't sure about that on December 7th, were you?
No. And many times after.
Bill Burns, Flying Tiger P-38 pilot.
He's not here.
Oh, he's not here? Oh, okay. Well, talking to you about the P-38, I thought maybe you would be here.
Right, no, I talked to him, he didn't feel like coming.
I just want to say good morning to you all. I want to thank Bob and Bob for inviting me to speak here today. I wear a lot of different hats, and Bob Appler sent me an email a few days ago and asked me by what title I wanted to be introduced. Basically, he wanted to know what he should call me. Well, I've been called a lot of things. Some good, some not so good. But let me be clear on this. Every day, but especially today, Memorial Day, the title I am most proud of is Gold Star Father. I'd like to recognize the purpose of today, to honor and remember those who have given their life for their country. However, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize others that have given much for their country, and we call them veterans. I'd like to recognize all the veterans that are here today. I would also like to recognize all the veteran families that are here today, because they also sacrifice so much for our country. And as we come back to the meaning of today, for some veteran families, such as ours, we pay the ultimate sacrifice. Today I want to point out two conflicts. First, the Korean War, sometimes, and I think shamefully, called the Forgotten War. No episode in our history where men sacrificed their lives for their country should be forgotten. And secondly, I want to acknowledge the Vietnam conflict. This is very difficult for me to talk about. I am so ashamed of our country, for our country. Gentlemen, it is far too late to say this, but to all the Vietnam vets, I say from the bottom of my heart, welcome home. It is these Vietnam vets that are making sure that honor is being paid to every fallen hero that returns today. An honor that was never paid to their fallen comrades. And yet through their service organizations, like the VFW, American Legion, AMVETS, DAV, and many more, and through organizations like the Patriot Guard Riders, no hero comes home without honors. Why? Because they remember. We have days set aside to honor veterans in their service to their country, but today is not one of those days. Today is Memorial Day, a day of remembrance. Today is the one day of the year which is set aside to honor and remember those that gave their last full measure of devotion for their country. I have to tell you that almost 10 years ago, never in my wildest imagination would I have thought that this is where I would be today. I've done some public speaking, and I'm a patriot. I love my country and believe it can return to the great country that it once was, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean the title Gold Star Dad. My name is Kevin Graves, and I am the proud father of Specialist Joseph A. Graves. My son Joey fought for his country, and on 25 July of '06, he gave his life for his country. Just as Isaiah responded to God in the Old Testament, when Joey was asked by his country, "Whom shall I send?" he responded, "Here I am, send me." These are the words printed on a wall at the Military Police Memorial Grove in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. There are rows of pavers around the wall, and on one of those pavers, there are a set of crossed pistols, the insignia of the MPs, and the words, Specialist Joseph A. Graves, OIF, 25 July, '06. Above that paver on the wall are the words, send me. That's what all the young men and women of today's military say, send me. They volunteer to serve their country. And so as we gather for this Memorial Day, let's also remember and pray for those that are currently serving. When I speak about my son, I speak on behalf of the close to 7,000 families that have a similar story to tell. Families whose children went to war because our country was attacked on 9/11. This day is not just about Joe. It's about all our heroes. But I've been asked to share a little bit about Joey's story with you. It is brief. It is far too brief. Joseph Anthony Graves was born on 28 December 2004 in Castro Valley. His mother, Marianne, and I were blessed with a happy, healthy boy. His mother and I separated when he was 3, and he lived with her for about 6 years. When Joy was 9, his mother and I decided he should come live with me. For the next 9 years, I raised my son as a single parent. These were the greatest years of my life. Joe and I were truly best friends. We shared everything together and fully participated in each other's lives. He taught me to be a parent, as I taught him to be a young man. Joey's understanding and acceptance and his love of Christ blossomed at this time. He was also active in our church and took a leadership role in the youth group. But it was at 17 years of age, much to my surprise, when he decided to enlist in the Army through the delayed entry program. I was proud of him and loved him very much for the decisions he was making. However, this did not keep me from interrogating Joey's recruiter for 3 hours before signing the papers that put him in the Army. But I was extremely proud. He chose the military police because his goal was to be an FBI field agent. Graduated from Liberty High School in Brentwood with a 3.8 GPA. I really thought we'd be talking about what college campus he would be going to, not what Army base he would be serving at. He could have gone to college anywhere he chose, yet he was pretty much a regular kid, except that he chose to fight to protect our freedoms. He went to basic at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. After completing basic, Joey went to jump school and he got his wings. He then did his first deployment in Yongsan, Korea for a year. There he showed his love for Christ by starting Bible studies and leading some of his fellow soldiers to Christ. Joey returned from Korea in March of 2005, spent a month of his block leave with me, and then he and I made the long journey to Fort Hood, Texas. Getting to Texas wasn't bad. Getting across Texas took forever. This was a fantastic road trip, and it was the last time we were able to really spend some quality time together. A month before his deployment, he returned home to Discovery Bay to be the best man at my wedding. A week later in Texas, he married his high school sweetheart, Corey. 3 weeks later, he deployed. Over the next 8 months, I heard from Joey often. He would call more than write. We probably talked 2 or 3 times a month. He told me of the progress they were making over there. He and his company really believed in what they were doing in Iraq. They knew they were making a difference. Whenever I showed concern, he would always say, "Don't worry, Dad. We're in one of the safest areas of Iraq." Well, that wasn't exactly true. On 25 July 6, 1st Platoon was on an escort mission outside of Baghdad, 400 meters from the next checkpoint, when they were hit by what was described in the incident report as a well-orchestrated ambush. There was one casualty. Joe, my only son, my only child, was killed when his Humvee was struck by multiple EFPs. We talked about titles earlier. Because of that incident, one title I will never have is Grandpa. I cannot find the words to express how proud I am of my son and how proud I am of all of our military. There will be more conflicts and there will be more casualties. More families will become Gold Star families. But let us not forget what this day, Memorial Day, means. It means honor and remember that they will never be forgotten. Every year to begin the Memorial Day weekend, my wife and I join with thousands of Boy Scouts and volunteers to honor the origin of the holiday. As Bob said, Decoration Day. We get up early, too early, on Saturday morning, and we go to Golden Gate National Cemetery in San Bruno. There, with the Boy Scouts and volunteers, we put over 113,000 flags on each and every headstone. If you have not been over there and seen that, it is spectacular. One of those headstones reads, Specialist Joseph Anthony Graves. I would like to end with a short poem that was presented to me at one of those events by a Gold Star dad a few years ago. And it's entitled, The Last Monday in May. We pause to remember those who died with so much courage, so much pride. They'll never come back, yet memories endure to remind us of freedom, fragile, pure. We're worthy of their sacrifice if we pause each day, not just on the last Monday in May. Thank you very much. I want to do one more thing. It's very appropriate that we're here in front of the World War II Memorial because I was born into a Gold Star family. Earlier I called out my Uncle Norman's name. My Uncle Norman was a B-17 turret gunner. Doesn't need to be said that obviously I never met him, but he was about March before the end of the war. His plane was shot down, and all that was found of him was his dog tags and his Bible. His little pocket Bible that he was given from a church in Redwood City. I still have that Bible. But I was born into a Gold Star family. I also had an uncle that served in World War II and received many honors and carried a bullet around with him for a long time from being over there. I would like to introduce Joey's grandparents and Gold Star grandparents and Gold Star sister, my mother, Mary Lynn and Jean Graves. And together we're going to take twice a week today on the at the base of the wall.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
As you know, my name is Bob. I'm representing the veteran military of Stockton. And today has given us the opportunity to bow our heads and to honor our fallen heroes who have given us so much. Honor, courage, and sacrifice lived in the patriots who started a revolution. Brothers who fought to save a union. This spirit lived on in the Rough Riders, the Doughboys, and the GIs who stopped tyranny in the Pacific and in Europe. Those same values lived on in the soldiers in the mountains of Korea, the jungles of Vietnam, and the deserts of the Middle East. In the past decade, we have seen these values again in the men and women of our 911 generation. While the nature of war has changed, the people that have fought in it, our young men and women, have answered the call and have stepped up to continue the service. In the heat of battle, there is no greater honor to be with brothers in arms who are fighting for God and country. In the footsteps of the American generations before, the daughters and sons are out there on the shores, on the beaches, on the ocean, and in the skies, protecting us from all who would do us harm. Today, let us renew and rededicate ourselves to the ideas that made our nation great, and remember those who served and are serving today. Through the generations, we give life to our traditions, because it solemnly binds both the young and the old into a brotherhood of men and women who have served this country. The tradition of a three-volley firing started in the 14th century. Then, when the battlefield was clear of all the dead and the wounded, each side would fire 3 times to let the other side know that all the dead were taken care of. Today, our tradition is similar. We do a 3-round volley fire and the playing of taps. This signifies that all the fallen are taken care of, and with the playing of taps, it is the final honor to our brothers in arms.
On the guard, all head, hut! All right.